Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and since it's Women's History Month, I'm here today to talk to you about my love of Sailor Moon the anime. It was a show I grew up with when I was a little kid, and I still watch it even to this day as an adult. And when it comes to Sailor Moon, it just holds a really dear and special place in my heart because it's one of those things that I grew up with and stayed with. Even though, a couple of like years passed, enough gaps where I didn't watch it or thought about it, something's always bringing me back. And then, there's more stuff I'm actually learning about the lore and history of Sailor Moon, even still to this day, to like last month. I learned something that I never knew because the anime took so many like liberties and changed some stuff around. So yeah. So this is just a video of, like my history and love for Sailor Moon, what I think about it, and just that stuff. I cannot begin to even express how much I love Sailor Moon. Like, I remember when I first watched it as a kid, because like when I was a kid growing up, we had cable at one point in time, and then for a long period of time as a kid to a teenager, we didn't have cable. And then I got it again in my senior year of high school. So, being a kid with like no cable, you're constantly bouncing around from whatever channels you have, and a lot of syndicated stuff. Syndicated stuff in the 90s was awesome. Not every show was awesome, but it was pretty much awesome. And so, you always had something to watch, you know. And back then, this wasn't a time when streaming wasn't around. There was no kid programs every single hour of the day. You had to watch it at a certain period in time. And I remember when I was home for the summer, I was just flipping around and not even sure how like I found this show, but I found it on the very first episode. And so, I was watching one of those syndicated channels, and then Sailor Moon just appeared. And I was just like floored by everything. I have never seen anything that looked like that before. I think this actually came out before Power Rangers, I believe. Like, I was just so like shocked, and just like the visuals, like the style of the animation, because I had seen anime before. I just didn't know what it was. I'm not even sure what the first anime cartoon I saw was. I remember it was a bunch of people. I think they was at a beach house or like on a cliff or something like that. And I remember them having like these vehicles. Maybe the vehicles transform into a giant mecha robot. I'm not sure. But it wasn't Transformers. I remember that. But yeah. So, but truly, Sailor Moon felt like the first anime I ever saw. I was just shocked by like the visuals and the color palette and the way people were designed, and then the transformation sequences. I was like, cool, man. And then of course being a kid of like just a kid in general, and and liking the opposite sex. You gotta admit, them in their like little school uniform slash sailor outfits with them long legs were like very like eye peeling and stuff. But yeah, it's just like, so it was just like this huge like revelation that I had, because when you watch American animation, it doesn't look the way like anime does. Their facial expressions were just so bizarre and out there, and there was so much like comedy in this stuff, and it's just like I just wasn't used to like this format, so I was very intrigued by it, and it was just something that I couldn't stop watching as a kid. And Sailor Moon is one of those type of things that is for like anybody. You can be like anybody and enjoy. It doesn't matter what country you're from. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter your gender or sexuality. It's just Sailor Moon is just a place for everyone in the world. And that's what's so great. It's like this huge unity of like togetherness. And me being like, a straight male and stuff, it's like sometimes it get kind of hard trying to like knit or like buy the merch of Sailor Moon stuff, because well, Sailor Moon is extremely girly. Even though it's for everybody, it was targeted for like girls and stuff, but boys end up liking it too. And so sometimes it can be kind of like a little hard because, like, you want to buy the merch, you want to buy the shirts, but the shirts are super girly at times, especially the newer shirts because they're drawn more in the crystal manga type style and they can get very feminine looking. But the merch, man, like Sailor Moon is one of the most expensive merchandises to buy. There are a gazillion different items to buy, and people have spent like probably well over a good $1 million worth of like merch. I have seen people on YouTube who have an entire wall or an entire room dedicated to Sailor Moon merch, and they buy every single last thing that comes out, even if it's something that looks similar to the other thing. They want every like iteration and version of it. And Sailor Moon hasn't just like changed like the life of like people who experience watching it. It has literally changed the way you watch out of animation or storytelling. Like, because the thing about Sailor Moon is like what they call magic girls over in Japan, and basically it was a cross between Bewitched and something else. I can't remember what. Probably Sentai. Because I remember Bewitched, the actual American show, influenced the whole magic girl genre, starting back in like in the early, probably like 70s or 80s, probably. And so Sailor Moon was a combination of like Bewitched and Super Sentai, which is Power Rangers over here in America. Because like whenever you watch like a lot of like even American shows or even like American shows that are like drawn overseas or even just like overseas shows like in French or not French but France. There's like French anime and it has a very certain unique style. It's like a blend of American and Japanese animation, and it's just like no matter what you watch you see that whole girl transformation stuff like in other like genres in other countries. It's very influential, and so it's like there are people who have dedicated their own superhero creations based off of Sailor Moon that are similar. I remember even fan fiction, and even like a lot of the modern boy stuff you see on TV is influenced by like Sailor Moon. It had a global impact on the world. Now, of course, this wouldn't be like possible if it wasn't for the creator of Sailor Moon, a very talented, gifted woman, and I thank this woman from the bottom of my heart. I cannot pronounce her name, but I have huge respect for this woman as much as I have respect for like Stan Lee or Jack Kirby or Bruce Timm. It's like this woman is like up there on my top list. And it all started in the manga, and it all started with not even Sailor Moon. It started with Sailor V, which would later on become Sailor Venus, and then later it progressed into Sailor Moon. And then, as y'all know, the manga went from that to the animation, the anime that came out in the 90s for us Americans. I think it might have came out in the 80s in Japan, and I say that because like when you look at their clothes, it looks kind of 80s, early 90s, so something like that. Then came all the animated movies, the live action TV show, which I still cannot get into till this day. Like I tried, it's different. There are some things they did that I like I love how they changed the girls' hair and their civilian clothes. Because that's one thing that's always bothered me about Sailor Moon is how do people not know who they are? But I guess it's like a spell cloak that's on their like transformation thing. So you just can't tell when you see them in their costumes and their superhero gear. And then so the only way you know is them if you actually see them transform. So yeah. But one thing about the live action thing that I really enjoy was that, like I said before, their hair changed up. And it actually had storylines that were different from like manga and anime, mainly because the person who created Sailor Moon, she had a huge influence on the television show and shaped it to be the way it was. But there are just some things that are so jarring that I just can't get with a TV show. One, I don't speak Japanese, so that's a huge bummer. Two, it feels like a super low budget Power Rangers or Super Sentai. It feels like something you're watching like a play. The characters don't really act the way they do that I'm used to seeing them act. They pose like way too much. Their weapons and props are literally toys that you can buy from like the merch. Some of the animation is very ugh, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I don't know, it's just like they just don't look the way I would assume they will like look at Sailor Moon. It's just, and it's even more girly than the anime. It just feels very bizarre and different, and just it just doesn't feel like Sailor Moon sometimes when I look at it. It just feels like it's something else. Then of course there was like the musicals and like the plays of Sailor Moon. And most recently there's Sailor Moon Crystal, which that is hit and miss for a lot of fans, especially myself. I will make a complete separate video about Sailor Moon Crystal, what I like, what I don't like about it, because there's a lot I don't like about it, but there are some things I really do like about it. And yes, Eternals is part of the whole Crystal thing, so when I be talking about that, I'll be talking about that as like a whole. Needless to say, let's just say the main thing I like about Crystal is season 3, and for the most part season 3 only. I do like the animation when the animation is good. I do like the new transformation sequences that have been updated. I love the color palette, but that's just about it. Another thing about Sailor Moon that I really love is that all the characters have different personality traits, which is a huge plus when watching a show. You don't want everybody to look the same, act the same, or sound the same, which is one of the problems I have with Crystal. So many people sound the same, especially the guys. They all look the same, and all personalities are very similar to each other. But as much as I love Sailor Moon, you have to admit it is wash, rinse, and repeat. Like that formula happens a lot in every season. And Sailor Moon, for the most part, is roughly anywhere between 40 to 50 episodes a season, and only 10 of them get to the actual plot, and the rest is non-stop filler. Filler. However, even though it is filler, it's good filler because it's character progression, character development. You really get a sense of who these characters are when it comes to the filler. And that's one thing that's really great, because like it really helps with the whole different personality thing, which is something the problem I have with Crystal, because it is mostly just 13 episodes and they get straight to the point. I like that. I like how they get straight to the point. Like Crystal getting straight to the point is like amazing. I just wish it was 20 episodes, not about 13. But there are no fillers in Crystal. But like I said before, it has its own pacing problem. Mostly it's sped up and confusing. And thank God I watched the anime, because if I didn't watch the anime, I wouldn't understand what was going on in Crystal. I would like be confused big time. Now, of course, watching Sailor Moon back in the day, like many people, I watched the American dub Deke version, which a lot of people seem to really hate. I grew up on that, so it has a fondness in my heart, and I love it to death. I have never watched the Japanese version of Sailor Moon Suffer Stars, and I had to put it on mute because I don't understand what they're saying. So yeah, but when it comes to the American version of it, it's been criticized a lot, mainly because they changed a lot to meet like a Western standard, which it was the 90s. I understand why they would do that. Like they changed all the names to like American names. Would I have preferred to hear the Japanese names? Of course, because even till this day, I still don't know some of the people's like actual real names. I only know their American names, and that can be a bit irritating at times. But I grew up with the Deke American version. So yeah, I do love the American names, and in this video I will be bouncing around from Japanese to the American names, mainly the American names at times, because that's really what I know, you know what I'm saying? Now of course they also change other things in the American version, like the sexuality type stuff in the windows, because for some bizarre reason in the Japanese version they keep showing like a lot of upskirt versions and other weird, like perverted stuff. Like that time that Rini was out and about in town and some boy was like harassing her and he pulled down his pants and it freaked her out. And I'm just like, why in the world would you show that in a cartoon for little kids and to a child character? I think there was like a scene in the actual Japanese version where Melvin, he smacked the teacher like on the butt and stuff like that, and it's like, why do something like that? Also, nudity. There's a lot of nudity in Sailor Moon for some reason. I just don't understand why. Mainly in the transformation sequences, and then in the one intro in season 4, I believe it was, or season 3. Maybe no, I think it was season 4. They all like naked. Or sometimes when they de-transform, like Sailor Moon does a lot, she's like naked, or like in Stars, she's flying around naked. And I just don't understand what is the fascination with that. Like I don't get it. Is it the culture? Is it just something that the creators wanted to do? Like, I just don't understand that. So of course that was censored in America, and I thank God it was censored too. And you know, you're probably asking, well, how do I know what the Japanese version is like if I never watched it? And that's because they later redubbed the older version into the Viz dub. I'll get into that a little bit later. Another thing they cut out of the anime in the American version was the homosexuality, the LGBT content. There was a little bit of it in season 1 where 2 of the guys were like, who were villains, were lovers. And they changed it in the American one where the guy that looked more girly was actually a female in the American version, because a lot of these male villains are very girly looking, very flamboyant, have really long hair. They're made to look like females, and one even cross dresses in season 4. And so they took that out of the American versions. What was his name? I think it was Zorsite. He was male, gay, with high pitched like male voice, and then they changed it in the American Deke version to where he's just a female. And then in season 4, the character named Fish Eyes. And the anime, he is a male who cross-dresses into a female, and when he does, he has like breasts and everything like that. And he has like a very high-pitched feminine type voice. In the Deke American version, he's just full-on female. And so, yeah, there are scenes of like 2 guys kissing. I don't think he kisses Tuxedo Mask. I'm not really sure. I know he has a crush on him and stuff. But Fish Eyes crushes on a lot of men in his season. And then, of course, the infamous Sailor Uranus and Neptune cousin thing. Yeah, in season 3, they introduced 2 outer senshi. One was Sailor Uranus, who's more like guyish looking, and then the other one is Sailor Neptune. And in anime, they're like a couple, and they care for each other. They're not like full-on girlfriend, but they really have a strong bond with each other, and they really like love each other. And then in the American version, they changed them into cousins. And they literally say that over and over. And it's kind of weird because they couldn't edit everything out of the Japanese anime. They had to leave some things in, or the runtime would be like all crazy. So there are times where you see them like holding hands very centrally, or like cuddling with one another. And they're supposed to be cousins. That's just always weird. Oh boy. That confused a lot of people. And I get why they edited it out. the LGBTQ content, because it was the 90s and LGBT stuff was very taboo at the time, and people, it was like a huge no-no for a lot of people, and they hated it and they wanted you to hate everything about it. So I get why the networks didn't want to show that. I mean, it didn't hurt nothing if they would have shown it, but there would have been a lot of angry parents, and it was just different times back then. I know that's one of the crappy things to say, but you know, it's literally, it's just the truth. Like, I don't like it when, you know, I see like black people mistreated in like older TV shows in the 60s and 50s and stuff like that. But but you know, I'm looking at it through like current day eyes, and you can't really do that, you know, because I understand from history lessons what the world in America was like back in those days, and it was really crappy for black people. So that's why it is that way it is. So it's kind of like, it's not fair and it's not right, but sadly it's just the way things were back then. And then there are the voices. Now, I grew up with the 90s deep voices, and I love them. All right. I know a lot of people hate them. A lot of people say they're too exaggerated. I love them because they all had their own distinct voice that gave them a personality. Like, take Molly, for example. She has a very strong New York, Brooklyn sounding voice, and it sets her apart from everybody else in the show. Nobody else has that. Then there's Luna, who has a very motherly type voice, and that's great for the show. Artemis has kind of like this uncle sounding type voice, which is kind of what he is to like the Sailor Guardians. Like, he's more of a father figure to Venus, but to all the other ones who he barely knows, when he got reincarnated, it's just like, you know, well, when they got reincarnated, it's just like, you know, his voice suited it, you know. Then there'sAmi's voice, who is, she's supposed to be like the genius and stuff, and she has this very upper class, slightly British European sounding type voice, and it's like perfect for her character. However, not everybody's voice was perfect in Nudity. A lot of the villains, they sounded awful, and I mean they sounded awful. Like, they tried too hard to let you know, hey, they're bad. That's why I prefer the Wiz villain voices over the Deke voices. Speaking of the Wiz version, okay, a few years back, probably around 2006, I was at Walmart and I saw they had Sailor Moon on DVD. I was ecstatic. I'm like, oh man, this is great, because like the older Deke versions of Sailor Moon you cannot find on DVD, and you can't really find no place else. And so I was so happy to like see that, so I bought it, and it was only like season 1 volume 1. There's like 2 volumes to it, and so I took it home and I watched it, and I was like, what the heck am I watching? I'm like, is this the same thing I watched when I was a kid? I don't recall it sounding this way, and I don't recall seeing like upskirt versions and all this nudity and stuff. I'm just like, what the world's going on? And I'm pretty sure I never saw that episode before, so I didn't understand what was going on and stuff, because the voices had all completely changed, but it was still drawn in the same animation style. So I was like totally confused. So I went on the internet and I'm like, oh, that's what they did. They redubbed everything. So I'm just like, I don't remember there being cuss words like Sailor Moon, which, yeah, there are cuss words, which they are hilarious. When Mars and Jupiter cuss, I love it. Especially when Mars does it. But yeah, I was totally shocked and confused as to what I saw and heard, because like what they did was this. They wanted to be more traditional to that of the Japanese anime. And so they decided to keep the animation exactly how it was in Japanese version, but change all the voices and all the names back to the Japanese version. Everything was intact, even the LGBT stuff. And I remember just hearing their voices. At first, I really hated them because I was just pissed and I was confused and I was shocked. And I just remember just being watching it, just being bored out my mind. Like I wasn't even enjoying myself because I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And so when I was watching it, it was just really strange. Like I was watching it and I just wasn't excited for Sailor Moon no more. I assume maybe because I was an adult in my 20s and I just didn't care for it. But no, that wasn't it at all. It was just the voices. The voices just made me super sad and everything. I don't want to say depressed, but it just made me really sad. And stuff. And it had nothing to do with my age. No, wait. No, wait. In 2006, I think I was close to being almost my 30s at that time. But it wasn't my age because, okay, here's my thing. Before I get back into the voices, a quick recap. So, okay, when I watched Sailor Moon back as a kid in the summer, you know, you're out for 2 months and everything. So I'm watching. I got through season 1. Then I got halfway into season 2, and then I had to go back to school, which totally sucked. And so I missed the rest of season 2. After that, the show actually got canceled. And it didn't come back to a couple of years later on Cartoon Network. But I didn't have cable, so I wasn't able to watch that. And so then I was at my cousin's house one day. And so back in those time I was in high school, probably about to be in the 11th grade, or it was 10th grade summer, about to be in 11th grade. And so I remember I would go to her house and like I had to like stay there for like a week and everything. My aunt was out of town. And so me and my mom and sister were over there, you know, watching her because she's a year younger than me. And so I would take like a VHS tape and I would record like so much stuff on TV that's on cable that I was never able to watch before. Things that are normal for a kid to see and things kids are probably not supposed to see. Like HBO type stuff. So I had watched an episode of Sex and the City for the first time. I'm like, whoa. And so anyway, I recorded an episode of Sailor Moon. Thank God it was a Venus episode because I used to really love Sailor Venus. And so I remember when I watched that episode, I'm just like, hey, Sailor Moon voice has changed a lot. Her voice does not sound the same at all. Like she sounds older and stuff. I didn't understand why. Well, I knew why because she got recast, but I was like, what happened to the other lady? Then, you know, a few years later, I did get cable finally, like my senior year of high school. And so I was able to watch, because, okay, that one episode I watched with Sailor Venus, that was season 3, with the whole a pure heart crystal thingy, stuff like that. Then season 4 with the dream arc. And then when I watched that, I think Pegasus had finally got revealed to everybody and they were getting ready to the final battle. And I just remember everybody's voices changed again. Sailor Moon was still the same from season 3, but Sailor Mini Moon, her voice had changed. And then Sailor Mars, Venus, and Mercury, all their voices had changed. And I didn't like the new Sailor Mercury's voice because Sailor Mercury was one of my favorites back in the day. And so I was just like, this is different. And then sometime in college, probably like my 3rd year of college or so, I was lucky enough to find Sailor Moon on YouTube, the whole Deke version. So I watched everything. I was finally able to see what all I had missed and everything like that. And I'm just like, oh, okay, and you know, stuff like that. So, but I still enjoyed it. That's the thing. So it wasn't my age. It was just when they did the Viz version, they had just changed the voices, and I was super disappointed. However, now that I am in my late 30s, and the Viz version is really the only version you can find, like on Hulu and DVDs and this and that. After watching that so many times and watching Crystal, I have now gotten used to the new voices, and I actually prefer some of them over like the older versions. Even some of the Sailor like Guardians, I prefer some of their voices, but some of their voices sound very similar to each other. I still don't know which Sailor Moon is my favorite. I don't know if I like the Deke season 1 and 2 version because those are 2 different actresses. I don't know if I like the new Stephanie lady who does like the crystal stuff. I just don't know which is my favorite because they all sound great and they all bring something different. And it's just, I don't know, I just don't know, And I do like some of the dialogue a little bit better in the Viz version because it sounds a bit better than some of the Deke version. But some of the Deke version stuff is more explained better, and I like that a whole lot more. So it's just a toss up. I know when it comes to the villains in the Deke, I hate, but I like both versions equally, and I wish fans would stop fighting over it like they fight over Star Trek and Star Wars. The only thing they should like really fight about if they like the original anime or Crystal. That's the only thing they should be fighting about. When I was a kid and when it comes to Sailor Moon, one thing that kept me coming back over and over was the transformation sequences. I love that so much. So much. Like, I love when I see it in Power Rangers. I just love when I see it in the Iron Man movies. I just love it. You know what I'm saying? Another thing I love so much about it was the humor. That was a funny cartoon. Like, and it was funny in the Deke version, the Viz version. It's sometimes even funny, especially when Stephanie, the new Sailor Moon actress, does like some of her comedic stuff. It's just straight up hilarious. And I just love it to death. Another thing I always loved about it was the personal struggles that these characters have to go through and, their emotions. Sailor Moon, like I said, is very girly and it's also very lovey-dovey. Like, pretty much everyone except for Ami, they just want to find love. They just want to experience that one person that they can spend their whole life with and just fall madly in love with. There's something they yearn for. It's something they fight really hard and struggle for, like Sailor Moon. The cool thing about her is that she's just a dorky little dopey, like stupid little kid. And she has all these dreams of like, falling in love and having a husband and being the prettiest person she can be and having a kid. And she wants everybody in the entire world to like experience that, And you see the heartache that she goes through with the guy that she's in love with, who she is literally destined from the day she was born, like to be with. And there's always something or someone who's causing them not to be like together or trying to split them apart. And, you can really feel that. Like, when season 2, when her and Darien or Mama broke up, like in the Japanese version, I really couldn't feel it. But woo, in the old Deke version, I felt it. Like, this is when Rini showed up and Sailor Moon or Serena got like really upset because Darien was spending all his time with Rini, this mysterious girl, and it really made her jealous. Yeah, it's kind of strange. She was jealous of a little girl because the little girl was in love with this big dude, because like little kids do. But why would a teenage girl fall in love? I mean, why would a teenage girl be jealous of a little girl thinking that this older man is in love with a little girl? Which I will get into that later about this whole adult and teenage crap. So yeah, and it's just like, so she talked to him and she's feeling jealous and he doesn't want anything to do with her because he had this really nightmare premonition of them both dying and this voice telling him that they need to like break up or something like that. So he took that to heart, thinking that it was real, that this is going to happen in the future. And so he pretty much shuns her throughout the entire season and he's being really mean to her again. And then he just breaks up with her. And she's just like, and then the actress voice, Tracy, who does in the season 2, she gives this heartfelt, like, empathetic, like just tearful plea in her voice. Like, she just wants to be with him so bad, and he doesn't want nothing to do with her. And he's just like constantly pushing her away and telling her like to get out. And then you just see her like walking down the street in tears, and she goes to like a payphone. and she just falls down in the payphone and she's crying until, well, you don't see her having the phone receiver in her hand, but she's talking to her mom, and she's telling her mom how Darian won't be there for like dinner tonight because they're supposed to have like this big like dinner thing planned, and she's just bawling in tears, and you feel it, you hear it, like you can feel it in your soul. Like that was a very powerful like breakup thing, and it's done a whole lot better than most live action crap you see, or like, and it's just like, it's just, you could feel that mess, that's something Sailor Moon was always good in. It was always good in like emotion and like drama and stuff that you can really feel in your heart and soul. And then when the bad guys are always trying to like steal people's like special dream or like something they love more than life itself, these girls and they jump into gear and they're ready to like stop this bad person because they want this person to have their happy ending. And then, just like I said before, the comedy is hilarious in the anime. It is some of the most funniest stuff I have ever seen. That's something Crystal does not have, sadly. Now, Sailor Moon is similar to Power Rangers. It's the monster of the week thing. And like I said before, that's all in the filler. And it can get a little bit irritating at times. Just like the whole wash, rinse, and repeat thing is always this type of formula. It's pretty much the girls, they're like, they don't know like what their past is like. They don't know what's all out in outer space. They're living their lives, and then all of a sudden this like evil force comes to Earth and it wants to like take over Earth, and there's like a leader, and there's all these generals, and then all these monsters, and you assume that the leader is like the big bad, but oh no, the real big bad is like this other big bad that's like far away, that's in like another dimension, like really hurt and needs like the life force or something, and that's who like the leader is like working for. And then you'll have like probably like 5 episodes of this one general until they're defeated, and then you have like another 5 of this other general until they're defeated. But one thing that is nice is when they change up the generals like tactics of how they like look for stuff. And normally the thing they're looking for is either energy to like make this big bad like more evil, or it's like dark energy to defeat into people so they can suck out their life force, or it's like they're looking for like a pure crystal heart that's in everybody's chest. And so because they're looking for like certain like artifacts, or it could be like, oh, there's a dream mirror in everybody, so because everybody has a special dream, and they're looking for like a certain person in that person's dream. And then there's the whole star thing, which I forgot why there are star seeds in people's heads, and it's like that. And then all the generals get defeated, and then the leader is doing like some bad stuff. Either the leader is destroyed, or the leader takes on the main bad person takes on the body of the leader, and then Sailor Moon defeats them all, and then it just repeats into the next season. That does get very tiring because every season is basically the same. It's just tweaked here and there. Now, the thing in Sailor Moon I hate the most, other than the upskirt stuff and the sexual stuff and the nudity, I hate how they always do this whole adult teenage relationship crap. It's disturbing. It's not cool. If you watch any of my videos in the past, I don't like stuff like that. I don't care who it is. I don't like it. And in this series, they do that a lot, because the main star of the show, Sailor Moon, Usagi, Serena, Princess Serena, whatever you want to call her, she is a girl in middle school. Now, when you are in middle school, I don't know how old you are in Japan, but in America, you're roughly around the age of 12, 13, 14. And she's dating a grown man in college. And he's about 18, 19. That is disturbing. Okay, it's wrong when it's a high school student dating a college student, but she's in middle school, for crying out loud. She doesn't go to high school until the 5th and last season. Oh, 5th and last season I will get to shortly. And so, like, yeah. So it's like she's dating him. And of course, they have the best relationship in the entire series because those two are destined to be with each other. But it's very disturbing because he's a grown man dating literally a little girl. And you know how tall people are. Like, I don't know how tall Japanese people are. I'm not getting to that whole racist stereotype of them being short. But I'm talking about like American 12, 13, 14-year-old people. They're short. Okay, they're about 5 foot at the most. So this grown tall man who's 6 foot tall is dating like a little tiny kid basically. And it's disgusting and disturbing. Then you have like Jupiter. She's all like in love with like this one dude from like a coffee shop type place or an arcade kind of place. And he's in college and she's in love with him. And a couple other characters are in love with him. Then there's the whole Molly and God, who was the dude name? Was it Nephlite? I keep getting their names confused, the villains in the first season. She falls in love with a grown man and he falls back in love with her. And it's very disturbing and disgusting. But yet it's one of the better relationships in the entire series. And it's just like, why? Why are you fantasizing that? I don't understand it. They did the same thing in Pretty Little Liars. Why do you do that? Like, I just don't get that. And they always make those relationships the best ones in the entire series. It's not cool when this happens in real life and people go to jail for that. You know, so stop fantasizing that mess. Another thing about Sailor Moon I love is the American music. I love the first season intro. It's actually the intro for all the seasons. But it sounds so great. It tells you exactly what the story is about. It tells you exactly what Sailor Moon is about. And just the music in general. And I'm talking about like the music where like this American lady sings and stuff. It's so profound and it's so impactful. And it really gets you hyped whenever they're in battle. And the season 1 finale, you hear that music playing and you're hyped. And Sailor Moon R movie, you get really hyped at the end when you hear that music playing. And you know that asteroid's headed for Earth, and Sailor Moon's doing her best to stop it and preserve Earth. And it's like it really pisses me off when they took it out of the Wiz version, and it really pisses me off. I keep saying Wiz for it. It's Viz, the V. I'm thinking of The Wiz, the movie, and I was really bummed when they take it out of like Crystal. I mean, yeah, the Japanese music's fine, but it's not as like boom, 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 as like the American one. Now, buns were made famous by that of Princess Leia from Star Wars, and this is why they're called space buns. But these space buns were made popular by that of Sailor Moon later on in years. Another impact that Sailor Moon has had on the world is like, look at their hairstyles. Like when you look at Sailor Moon, she has these two, well, in the American one, they call them meatballs, but in the Japanese version, they call them buns. And it's like, and even like Sailor Mini Moon, it's like, you know, you never really saw a person who has hair like that before. And Sailor Moon was the first one I ever saw. Now you're seeing this hairstyle being duplicated in various different ways, you know. Mary from Batwoman, her hair has kind of like a Sailor Moon-esque quality to it, and a type of style with the way she does like her ponytail bun type thing. That idiot from The View, Megan McCain, she had like a Sailor Moon-esque type of hairstyle. Also, another thing about Sailor Moon that influenced people was like her just wanting to be a normal person and not a superhero. This is something we have seen a lot lately in the last couple of decades in American superheroes. We saw it with Buffy, Clark from Smallville. Now I'm gonna talk about a few more things about like the Deke version and stuff that kind of like annoyed me a little bit, and then I'm gonna wrap it up, and then I'm gonna do a part 2 later on because I just realized, see, I recorded this about a year and a half, maybe 2 ago, and I realized this video is gonna be extremely long, so it's best if I just break it up in parts. Ironically enough, that the man behind Power Rangers, Han Saban, he was going to make his very own Sailor Moon cartoon series, but he was going to make it truly that of an American adaptation, a brand new animation. It was going to be half live action and half animation. Thank God, he never did that. Another thing that was edited out of Sailor Moon in the Deke version was death. If you saw somebody die, it was mostly like a villain. But even when they died, and you clearly saw them die, they would like shoot out like a really quick line of saying, "Oh, I've been defeated. I have to go back to the Negaverse." Well, the Negaverse was like the main evil like part of like the universe that they all lived in. So that was always kind of weird. But some people who died in Sailor Moon will shock you the most, like the Sailor Guardians or Sailor Scouts themselves. At the end of season 1, every single last Sailor Guardian dies. And they die in a pretty brutal kind of way. And only Sailor Moon is the only one left standing. Even Tuxedo Mask, Darien, Bamo, even he dies. Like everybody dies except for like Sailor Moon and the 2 cats. So Sailor Moon, using the silver crystal, she pretty much resurrects everybody and goes, not necessarily back in time, but she just resurrects everybody. And then she also erases everybody's memories because she just wants to be a little girl again and not a superhero. And so that was something that was taken out of the original Deke American version that was so confusing in the last battle of the season 1 finale. I was just always like, what the world is going on? Because they edited it in such a weird way. And then after you see somebody clearly die, they'll be like, oh, I'm going back to like my home world or something like that. And then of course the Guardians, they're all like, oh, well, I guess I've been defeated and I guess I'm like knocked out, passed out, unconscious or whatever, something like that. And I was always confused by that. So I was really happy when they left that into the Viz version. Another thing that they edited out, well, like 2 episodes, I think, in season 1, which really pissed me off because one was really funny and the other one was Sailor Venus centric episode. And the only reason why they edited them out, not because there was anything bad in it, is only because their storylines didn't have anything to do with the main storyline of the season. Which is quite a bummer because that one Sailor Venus episode was really, 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 really good. And back in those days, I used to love Sailor Venus. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.